if you're human, probably have been afraid in your lifetime, afraid of something. Fear. Fear is a big thing, and there's all sorts of fears. There's the good kind that has kept the human race alive for 1,000 years, or thousands of years. And then there's the bad kind that paralyzes and restricts people from living the life they want for themselves. That's no good. Phobias, for example. Phobias, according to the American Psychiatric Association, is an irrational and excessive fear of an object or situation. Glossophobia is the fear of speaking in public. This fear, according to most lists, is our number one fear, even more so than the fear of dying. People would rather die than speak in public. Apparently, 75% of the population would rather die than speak in public. And that is no way to live. So, by conquering this or any fear, your whole life opens up to you. You build confidence. You are now free from your fear to do new things which could lead you down a different path to a better job and perhaps a better life. That's a big deal. Okay, so Enrique Schaerer, a litigation attorney in Los Angeles. He is also the president of Crown City Toastmasters here in Pasadena. Toastmasters, if you don't already know, is an organization with over 14,000 clubs all over the world. It's been around since 1924. Toastmasters' primary focus is helping people develop their public speaking skills. Conquer that fear, y'all. Thank you for joining us today, Enrique Schaerer.
Hi, Brooke. Let me also thank you for having me and for giving me the chance to say a few things about our Crown City Toastmasters Club in Pasadena.
Yeah, you got it. And we will definitely get to that. But why do you think so many people are afraid to speak in public?
Gosh, that's an excellent question. And I do think it's astonishing that in self-reporting, people claim to be more afraid of public speaking than death.
Yeah.
To put that into concrete terms, that means that most people, if they were at a funeral, they would rather be in the casket than the person giving the eulogy.
Yep.
Which is astonishing, right?
Yeah.
And so I think the point is that, if people out there are a little afraid of public speaking, they're in good company, and they should take heart, because it's certainly something that people can get over. Now, in terms of why people might be afraid of public speaking, I think it may be that we live in a society where we're just very conscious of others. It's a very social society, and I think people are afraid, to talk about fear, people are afraid of not looking good. And maybe people don't have a lot of opportunities to practice their public speaking, and that creates more anxiety because people feel like they're not prepared or they're not in practice. So at Toastmasters, we're trying always to give people those opportunities so they feel more relaxed.
So it's one of those ideas that practice makes perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. And, there's a saying, and it may be overused, but I think it's true, that repetition is the mother of skill. And that if you want to be good at anything, you have to just do it time and again. And that's what I love about Toastmasters, is that we have a regular schedule where we meet twice a month, and we're always practicing and trying to just stay up on our skills and just follow that strategy of repetition is the mother of skill.
And so why is it important for someone to be comfortable speaking in public? And this, for everybody out there, is not just necessarily somebody giving a speech behind a podium. I read someplace that this fear of speaking in front of others can also be, could also show its face in the form of a student not wanting to answer a question in class in front of people, or if you don't want to give a speech as the best man at a wedding or something like that. So it's not necessarily just for the business leaders out there or professional public speakers. This is a normal skill for people to have in general.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that, whether it's in a professional context or a personal context, there are going to be situations where you'll be called upon to speak in public. And like you said, it doesn't have to be something really big. It doesn't have to be a lofty speech in front of a huge crowd. I mean, there are lots of opportunities for public speaking that pop up in everyday life. that, might involve a small group setting, or may be in a classroom, or maybe at a dinner where you have to rise and give a toast to a friend or to a family member. And so I think there are lots of opportunities to speak in public, and I think a lot of people may view those opportunities as threats, but they really are opportunities. It's a chance for you to get up and be yourself, draw on your conversational instincts, and say something that's meaningful and impactful to the audience. And so I think if you change what public speaking means to you, I think that it can have a tremendously positive impact. You mentioned at the beginning, that this could lead to all sorts of promotions in your job. This could maybe even lead to a better life in terms of your personal life. And I think one of the reasons why is that if you master the skill of public speaking, you'll be able to interact with people better. You'll have more impact with people. And that'll not only translate into better relationships, professional and personal, but also into just more self-confidence. And so I do think that public speaking, if you can master this, if you can really get this tool into your toolbox and have it handy whenever you need it, I think it really will lead to a lot of personal growth for a lot of people.
And open up some doors, I would imagine.
Absolutely.
Okay, so say somebody is ready, they're willing to tackle this and get into it. So how do they prepare? How do you begin to tackle this fear?
Okay, well, I think there are two questions there. One is, how do you face the fear? And I really think the only way to overcome fear is just to face it and act in spite of it. And so that's the first question, is how do you motivate yourself to get beyond the fear? And I think that the way you do it is kind of like a muscle, where you're building a muscle and you might think, okay, if I want to lift a very heavy weight, at first it may seem impossible. But if you start with a smaller weight and you just build a little at a time, and then you add a little weight and build a little more and a little more, eventually you'll be able to lift weights that at first you thought were impossible. And so I think the way to overcome the fear is to start small and then build. And that also leads to the preparation. So you may want to do a very short, small speech in front of a small audience at first. And at Toastmasters,
what would that
we have...
look like? Okay, it's like something like Toastmasters then.
Yeah, absolutely. But it doesn't have to be Toastmasters. So it could also be in front of a small group of friends, people you feel comfortable with. It could be in front of some of your colleagues. At Toastmasters, we have about 29 members. At every meeting, we have usually somewhere in the ballpark of 15 to 20 people present. So it is a smaller group setting, and it's really a great place. We try to nurture a very supportive, positive environment where we hold you in high regard and high esteem, and you can get up, and there's no judgment. You can really just practice, and you can use that space as your laboratory. But I want to impress on people that, this could really be done with your closest friends. I know that we had recently a teacher who joined our club, and she was scheduled to give her first prepared speech to the club. And I know she was nervous about that speech. And so the way that she prepared, actually, was she asked a few of her students, and these are fifth graders. She asked a few of them just to, stay in during recess and listen to her speech, and they gave her comments, and I think it was really safe for her because she felt like, all right, well, if I present first with my students, then I can go in front of strangers and maybe try the same speech, and because I've gone through it once before, I'll have that comfort of knowing that I can do it, and I won't worry quite as much. And so my advice is start small and build.
Yeah, okay. All right, that sounds reasonable. And so does a speech need to be funny? Do I have to be a comic, too?
I find that some of the most effective speeches integrate at least some humor. Now, I've said many times to the club that this is not my strong suit, that it's hard for me to bring the funny, as it were. But I think the best way to do it is to just be natural about it. Some people are very good at being prepared and being purposefully funny. Other people are funny when they're more spontaneous. They're funny when they don't intend to be. I know I fall into the latter camp. If I try to tell a joke, it's it may not come across very well. But if I just let it come naturally, it may come across better. And so I think the trick is to really figure out what kind of speaker you are, what your strengths and weaknesses are. And if funny is one of your strengths, I think it's great, because I think people always want to laugh. They want someone who will make them laugh. Mm-hmm. And we have some members of our Toastmasters club who are excellent at that. But if you're not good at it, you can certainly practice it. I had to give a best man speech about a month ago in Washington, D.C. for my best friend from law school. And I'm good at the more informative speeches, and the funny speeches are a little less. They're a little less easy they're less easy for me. And so I actually practiced my best man speech twice in front of the Toastmasters Club, and they gave me excellent feedback, great feedback. I changed it after the first time. They gave me more feedback, and then I went to D.C. I had the Capitol building in the background, and I gave what I thought was a very funny speech, and I got great reception for it. So if you're not the funniest person, you can certainly practice it and build upon what you have.
And what kind of feedback did you receive? Like, what kinds of pointers did they give you?
So that's one of the things actually I love most about Toastmasters is the feedback. So the specific feedback that I received was I tried a joke at the beginning, and I was told that it fell a little flat. And so I was told to maybe consider building a rapport with the audience and then trying some jokes. They told me what jokes worked. They told me what jokes would work if I had a little more energy, where maybe the punchline you have to deliver with a little more energy. And then a couple people even gave me some suggestions on added jokes. And they also suggested what I should take out, because one of the things you want to do when you speak in public, especially if it's a short speech, you want to make sure not to clutter the audience with too much information. You want to give them maybe 1, 2, maybe 3 nuggets to really hang their hat on. And so the club, when they gave me evaluations, they really helped me kind of pinpoint what were the best parts of the speech and to really focus on those parts.
Great feedback. Good stuff. All right, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with Enrique Schaerer. He is the president of the Crown City Toastmasters here in Pasadena, and we will talk more about that when we return. We were talking about public speaking. Conquer that fear, you guys. Open up your life. So many things can happen when you do. All right, this is Sweet Life. I'm Brooke Peterson. Don't go anywhere. Happy Thursday. You're listening to Sweet Life. I am Brooke Peterson, streaming live from Pasadena City College on lancerradio.org. Thank you for tuning in and listening today. We are talking with Enrique Schaerer. He is the Crown City Toastmasters president here in Pasadena, and he's giving us some great tips on public speaking, which is a challenge for apparently 75% of the population who would rather die than speak in front of people. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Schaerer.
No, thank you again. What's interesting about that is I actually think that even the other 25% of folks who maybe don't self-report that they're terrified of public speaking, I think they probably have some fear too. And that fear is okay. Mm-hmm, a lot of people, I think, obviously the statistics suggest that most of our listeners have some fear of public speaking. And I'd like to impress upon them that it's totally okay to be afraid of public speaking.
Absolutely.
The question is what you do with it. And I can say from my own experience, some of the best speakers I know were very afraid initially and are still somewhat afraid. And those jitters, those last-minute jitters before you give a speech, I think they really can service because they'll help you pay attention, be alert, stay on your toes. And I think they also help you connect with the audience.
Yeah, sharp. It keeps you sharp. That's for sure. I remember hearing someplace, I think it was in a documentary somewhere, that physiologically your body goes through the same processes, and you have the same sensation when you experience fear as when you experience excitement. So when your heart starts pounding and you get a little bit fluttery in your tummy or your chest, if you sort of just think of that as feeling excited rather than afraid, and maybe that sort of changes the angle just a little bit, just enough to change the attitude.
I think so. I think it's so much about what it means to you and how you frame it. And so your attitude about public speaking, I think, can really have an impact in terms of how the experience goes for you.
Now,
go ahead. And we ended off, Brooke, kind of talking before the break about how to prepare. And one of the things I wanted to say, just to wrap up the idea of overcoming the fear, is that it's this idea of exposure therapy in psychology, that if you're afraid of something, you expose yourself to it, and you expose yourself enough that eventually you're just not afraid of it because you've grown comfortable with it, because it's just a part of your everyday life. So that's what really we're trying at Toastmasters to do for people, is really develop and build that comfort so that they're not afraid when they have to speak in public.
Yeah, a safe place to fail, and that's okay. If you stumble a couple times, that's fine. Now, okay, say you have this speech, you've gotten your feedback, you've practiced, you have your note cards or however you decide to do it, and you have these nerves. How do you suggest for people to relax and to calm down?
That's an excellent question. I think first is to breathe. You have so much more access to your body, to your voice, to your capabilities. If you just take a moment when you get up and just skip a beat, take a deep breath, get lots of oxygen in there, exhale, and then slowly start into your speech. And I think what the trick is, at least what I've noticed to be true for many speakers in our club and elsewhere, I think the best speakers really draw from their conversational instincts, where they're giving a speech, but rather than viewing the speech as sort of talking at an audience, which makes the audience feel kind of distant from you and maybe creates some anxiety because you don't feel like you really have any connection with the audience. The best speakers, in my view, instantly move toward the audience, and they try to establish some connection with the audience, and they're really trying to have a conversation with those people, so that when they go through their speech, they're trying to make eye contact with people and give that moment of the speech to that person as a gift, and then move to another person, look at that person in the eyes, and give that next part of the speech as a gift. And I think if you see it as a conversation, I think it becomes much less intimidating, because although many of us may fear public speaking, most of us enjoy having conversations with our close friends and confidants. So if you think of the audience sort of as a collection of your friends, I think it really helps take some of the nerves off.
Yeah, I would think so too. I remember the first and maybe only time I've ever given a speech. I was like 14 years old. I had just been elected like vice president or something of the Beta Club, and I had to give a speech. And all I remember is standing at the back behind the podium, and during this entire speech, I don't think I breathed once. Like, I don't think I took a single breath the entire time. By the end of the speech, I was like lightheaded and dizzy. It was horrible, but I remember that. And I do think I have improved since then, but I have had that personal experience of those staring at a bunch of people looking at you, and they're expecting to hear something, intelligent and charming or funny or whatever. There is that pressure. So if you just treat it like a conversation, and it's not just me against you or me, for you or whatever, it's me and you, me with you.
Right.
I think that's a really good bit of advice. I love that. That breathing thing, that was tough though, man. I remember that.
I think everyone who's done a lot of public speaking has a story just like yours, Brooke, because it's hard, and when you first start, you don't really know what to expect. And I do think some great speakers are born and they're just natural, but I think most of the great speakers were made. And so they had to sort of kind of work through these natural human fears. And remember, the most important thing is just to breathe, because otherwise you're literally just about to pass out in front of your audience, and that's not a good thing.
I was literally about to pass out. And I think it was like I didn't have the confidence to take the pause, to literally allow myself the moment to breathe. I felt like I had to sort of barrel through or something. But I think what is most encouraging about all of this is that it is a learnable, teachable skill. We can all,
absolutely,
with practice and encouragement and a safe place, get better and improve and conquer this fear.
I'll tell you something that I find very inspirational. One of our club members, he's a very gifted speaker. He's won speech competitions at the international Toastmasters level. He started off with a stutter, and he actually struggled with stuttering for most of his life. So that added to the anxiety of public speaking for him.
Sure.
And he just made up his mind that he wasn't going to live with the stutter, and let it hold him back. And Toastmasters helped him really take his speaking to a new level where he was able to achieve at a level that no one had really expected. And I find that so encouraging and so inspiring for everyone, hopefully for our listeners out there, because it really shows that you can go from a place where you're really not confident and maybe people don't recognize you as a great speaker to a place where you are recognized as a truly excellent speaker. So that's entirely possible.
Yeah, I think so too. Now, should a person have sort of an arsenal of quotes and quips and to sort of pull out at a moment's notice kind of thing?
That doesn't hurt, but it's not necessary. What I find, and one of the things I love about our club too, is that we have people in lots of different professions and from lots of different walks of life. We have lawyers and doctors and business owners and teachers and writers. Everyone draws from their own unique experience. So, Warren Buffett, who is kind of a hero of mine, he has an investment philosophy, which is invest in what you know. And I think the same can be said for public speaking. Talk about what you know. Because if you talk about what you know, you'll be more comfortable with it because you know it. And then you'll be able to share something richer and deeper for your audience.
Sounds like good advice. Almost like writers, write what you know. Same idea. Now, when you are starting a speech, the process of creating a speech, writing it, where do you start? How do you write a speech? Do you? Yeah.
I think I start with a lot of brainstorming. I mean, and really unstructured brainstorming, just throwing out as many ideas as possible. And then once I've done all of that brainstorming, I try to organize my thoughts into, sort of categorize it and put each thought into a cubby. And then I try to think about how to most effectively convey to the audience each point that I'm trying to make. And so, in law we do so much writing, and we say that good writing reflects good thinking. And I think the same can be said of public speaking, that good speaking reflects good thinking. And so if you do the thinking and then you organize it, I think you're more likely to be successful. And really there's no magic formula. Every good speech has three parts: an introduction, a body, and a conclusion. And in the body, really, you don't want to have too much information. You want maybe 3 points, 2 or 3 points. And what you can do in the introduction is you can maybe lead with a really interesting, captivating story and then give a roadmap to your audience. I'm going to talk about 1, 2, 3. Then you launch into your body. You talk about your first point, give commentary and concrete details, and then you go to your second point, and then your third point maybe, and then you end with the conclusion where you pretty much summarize what you just said. And I think that approach is really helpful. I think that, I'm not talking about being simplistic, but I'm talking about keeping things simple. If you keep things simple for your audience and for yourself, I think that the speech goes much better and you're much more relaxed and you really have that impact that you want to have.
Great. Now, we're wrapping up here, but tell us about Toastmasters. When does your group meet for people?
Sure. Thank you for asking. So the Crown City Toastmasters Club meets the second and fourth Wednesday of every month, and we meet at Pinocchio's Pizza in Pasadena, which is at the intersection of Lake and Rio Grande. And
second and fourth Wednesday. What time?
It's at 7 p.m., which is when we'll bang down the gavel and we'll start at that time. But typically we start at 6:30 with a pre-social time where people can come and sort of meet and greet. It's a great way to network. So 6:30 or 7, the second and fourth Wednesday of every month at Pinocchio's Pizza on Lake and Rio Grande.
All right, you heard it here. Go check them out. To wrap up real quick, Eleanor Roosevelt said, "You must do the thing you cannot do." And she knows. Meet you back here next week, everybody. Sweet life.
Thank you, Brooke.